Okay, this is the second Phalaenopsis orchid. Note I changed my gloves in between orchids just so I don't spread disease if any of these orchids have disease. Now this orchid does not look as bad as the other one, however I do see signs of dehydration. You can see the wrinkles here. Also this leaf is pretty floppy, it should not be like this. But looking at the root system, I think it looks a little better than the previous one. This orchid also kept her flowers much better. So in this case, if the flowers look nice and you can actually rejuvenate the orchid and rehydrate it pretty fast, you can leave the flower spike and enjoy the flowers. In my case, I think the flowers are on their way out. They don't look as pretty because most probably they were handled a little bit harsh. So personally, I choose to cut the flower spike directly from the base. I would like for this orchid to focus on her new leaf right here that is produced and also on new roots. When her season comes, I'll make sure that she has a nice flower spike. Okay, before we get to work, I'm gonna sterilize this pair of scissors with some alcohol. As with the previous orchid, I'm gonna repot this orchid into a more suitable medium for me and my conditions. So let's see how the root system looks like. And I think that indeed it looks a little bit better, but I can see quite a few dead roots that need to go away. And it's a really good idea to refresh this medium anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and follow the same steps that I showed with the other orchids on this one, and I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, so I'm done cleaning up this orchid and I've actually found something interesting. So you might see that I do have some green roots, but also some white roots. And many people would be tempted to think that these roots are actually dying. However, it's really not the case. Now, the roots of a Phalaenopsis orchid photosynthesize. This means they produce chlorophyll. And chlorophyll has a green pigment. However, it depends on light. Without light, plants cannot photosynthesize. These roots were pretty buried inside the medium and they didn't receive any light. Thus, they didn't photosynthesize. This is why they're white. Some might appear yellow. But if they're stiff, they are perfectly functional and you can leave them on the orchid. Now, this is the first interesting thing about this orchid. However, I found something better. So let's take a closer look on the axis or stem of this orchid. We can see a little nubbin here. Again, it appears to be white because it was buried under the medium and it didn't photosynthesize. So we have a nubbin here, and we do have something on this side as well. We have a nubbin here, but also one over here. What these are? Well, they might be old flower spikes that didn't develop. They might also be keikis, which means baby plants. Now, I'm not sure what they are, however, I am interested to see how this orchid will develop. All the more reason to actually cut this flower spike because I want this orchid to focus on vegetative growth. If these will turn out to be keikis, my plant will be bushier, and I do like that. Now, if this will happen or not, it's all up to the orchid. But I hope that by me cutting the flower spike and also potting this orchid higher up into the medium, I might be able to reactivate these nodes and make them grow again. So this is a pretty interesting orchid to observe further. And here is my orchid repotted, and just like with the other one, I'll make sure to keep this orchid properly hydrated and in proper conditions for its requirements. Up next, another dehydrated Phalaenopsis, as you can see, and the blooms on this one are still hanging in there, but they don't look that great. And this orchid doesn't look bad at all. I just cut away the dead roots and that's pretty much it. So it's just time to repot her and we're done. So in her case, just some dehydration caused by neglect. Now here is an orchid that is in between stressed and sick. I cannot really tell at the moment. So we do have dehydration signs, however, we don't seem to have enough roots in the pot, if at all. Also, this orchid lost quite a few leaves, and they're not the bottom leaves, they're the upper leaves. So this orchid suffered from something. So in this case, we might deal with a proper sick orchid. But we don't know until we unpot it and see what's going on with the root system. And here we have what I deem a proper sick orchid. As you can see, the root system is not looking all that great. It suffered from rot. Also, I see quite a lot of mold. The medium smelled horrible. Because the roots started to decompose, they accelerated the decomposition rate of the medium as well. It's pretty much a chain reaction. And I do suspect I have some issues with the stem. So I'm just gonna clear up the root system and then we're gonna take a look at the stem. And this is all that I could say from her root system. It doesn't look pretty, but I hope that these roots will keep hydrating this orchid as much as they possibly can. Now it's time to take a look at the stem, and to figure out what's going on, I need to remove these dried sheets, rather their leaf remains, as much as possible without damaging the orchid, just to see how extensive the infection is. if I indeed have an infection. And here is the source of our problems. You can see that the stem looks green until this point, and actually there was a flower spike here. And the flower spike was completely dried as well, and this section of the plant is not looking that great. However, I suspect that the infection has stopped. It looks kinda dry. Also, I do see a nubbin right here on the orchid. It might be a keiki. Maybe this orchid is trying to do something. I don't believe it's a root. It does not look that way. So what I will do is keep it like this for a while. What might happen right now is this orchid will try to produce roots from somewhere around here, because this portion I suspect is already dry, and I don't think roots can be produced here. However, just in the case that the stem is not completely destroyed, I will keep the roots as well. So for now, what I will do is I will actually spray with hydrogen peroxide the root system and the base of the orchid, and I will actually spray this portion as well. I would not apply cinnamon. However, hydrogen peroxide should help if I manage to dry this section very fast afterwards. So hydrogen peroxide, after it's done fizzing, will transform into water, so it's useless. So the best thing to do right now for this orchid is not pot it right away. I will keep it like this just for it to dry very, very well. And when everything is very dry, I will go ahead and pot it. Now this is just a safety measure that I'm taking. I could pot it, however I do have a water retentive medium that I prefer, and I'm afraid it will keep moisture on the stem. So for now I'm just gonna leave this be like this, probably for today, and tomorrow I will pot it, simply because I want this section to dry. So here we have a proper sick orchid, and I do believe that stem rot and stem issues are sometimes worse than crown rot, because if crown rot is stopped in time, the section of the stem is still viable, so the orchid can produce keikis and roots at least. However, when we're dealing with a stem rot, the infection can go up, can go down. It can actually kill an orchid faster than crown rot. But speaking about crown rot, you might remember we had a case recently. If you don't know the video but would like to watch it, you can find it right here in an info card. So I guess it's fitting to make an update on the crown rot orchid. And here she is. She doesn't look all that great, and I suspect the sleeve is really damaged. As you can see, it is hanging on by a thread right here. I'm keeping it on because it's kind of stiff. It's stiffened up, but I don't know what will happen. There's nothing on the flower spikes, no keikis. However, I did notice something growing, and I'll give you a close-up. Do you see this little bump right here? Now this didn't used to be here. It was formed after I repotted her. So whether this is a flower spike or a keiki, I do not know. I am keeping my fingers crossed that this is actually a keiki, because I want this orchid to try to propagate by producing new plants rather than flowers. So I'm not sure what's gonna happen to this orchid. What's for certain is that the crown is seriously affected. It will not produce any more leaves. So my hope is that this orchid will produce keikis, either basal keikis, either spike keikis. Nothing on the spikes so far, but I'm really curious about that growth, and fingers crossed it's a keiki. So alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video. Hope it was useful. You can see the difference between a stressed orchid and a properly sick orchid. Stressed orchids can bounce back really, really fast. In some cases, they can be brand new in a week or so. With sick orchids though, you do need more patience, and there's always the chance that they will not make it. No need to feel bad about it. We've all been through it. It's part of the orchid hobby, and a sick orchid can teach you a lot more things than a properly healthy orchid that doesn't give you headaches and doesn't make you research things. So I hope this video will come in handy for you guys in the future if you ever have issues, or if you ever observe something strange on your orchid. If you'd like to watch more videos from me, simply subscribe to my channel. I post on a daily basis. Always feel free to leave me comments down below if you have questions or suggestions for videos. I always check my comments, and if you ever want to send me a letter, do so at the address you see on the screen and in the description below. Choose an option on the screen if you'd like to visit my website orchidnature.com or watch another orchid video. Thank you for joining. I'll see you all next time. Bye!